Okay, good evening, everyone. Without further ado, may I welcome Dame Prue Leith to the stage. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Royal Society of Arts. It's wonderful to see so many of you here tonight. I'm Felicity Cloake, author of The Guardian's long-running How to Make the Perfect series. I can confirm that Prue's recipes always work perfectly, and travel writer, and I am so delighted to be hosting this evening's conversation. We are here to talk about everyone's favourite subject, ageing. In all seriousness, ageing is one of the few experiences that we all share. If we're lucky, as the old saying goes, getting older sucks, but it's better than the alternative. And yet it's still wrapped up in taboo, especially for a culture that tends to worship youth, and perhaps even more so for women. Which brings me to our guest. Prue Leith, former chair of the RSA, truly needs no introduction, but I'm going to give her one anyway. She is one of the country's most respected voices in food and hospitality, a restaurateur, caterer, food writer, novelist, sorry, I had to write this down because there are so many hats, broadcaster, entrepreneur, businesswoman, campaigner, and of course, a familiar face to millions on television. But tonight, we're not just talking about food, though I suspect that may sneak in. We're here to talk about her latest book, Being Old and Learning to Love It, a witty, refreshingly honest reflection on her experience of getting older. In it, Prue explores everything from shifting priorities and unexpected freedoms to loss, love, reinvention, and the confidence that can come with time. It's a book that challenges the idea that aging is something to resist, and instead asks, what might happen if we embraced it? At a moment when youth is often treated as currency, and aging can feel like something to apologise for, this book feels both timely and necessary. So, my first question, Prue.
Yes, ma'am.
I was really struck by the title of the book, Getting Old and Learning to Love It. Being Old and Learning to Love It, because the word old has become a bit of a dirty word in recent years, and we sort of skirt around it with terms like seniors and elders. I'm presuming that you have absolutely no problem with the word old and admitting to being old.
I have absolutely no problem with it, and in fact, I just wanted to call it Being Old, because I think being old is just quite interesting and. I understand that lots of people have a grim time when they're old, but a lot of people have a great time when they're old, which is always just ignored. So I wanted to write a book which is really just what I think about all these things. You know, all the things that come across your mind when you're old, like, boring things like death and dying and looking and all that stuff you ought to be doing, like sorting out your papers and telling your children that they're not going to inherit what they thought they were. All those things. But anyhow, I wanted to just call it Being Old because I thought it would be, I didn't think of it as not positive. And my publishers, who I now love dearly, but they said, well, this is a great book, but you can't call it Being Old, it's too negative. So I said, and anyhow, so we compromised in the end. They said, well, and learning to love it sounds like, there's something positive about it. so and learning to love it is entirely my publisher's fault. I'm happy with Being Old.
And so the learning to love it doesn't suggest that you have had to make, you've never had a problem with it, because people do find it hard to accept sometimes.
There are definitely problems with it. I mean, the classic one, you sit down on the floor and you can't get up again. Absolutely classic. That happened to me on telly one day. We were filming something, and I was trying to, it was a gardening program, and I was trying to demonstrate how to tighten the stays of a leaning tree. And I was putting on this thing. And anyway, I fell over. And as I went down, I thought, you know what? This is going to be great television. They are not going to cut it. They will not, the producers will not cut this out, me falling over. So I thought, I better just demonstrate how you get. So I then said, oh, well, that was a pity. But when you're as old as me, how you get up, when you put one leg out, you put the other, and you do this, you do, and I demonstrated how you can roll over onto your front and haul yourself up. Only I didn't manage it. Being old is not always great. Now I can't. I know I'll never get up. I need somebody to haul me up. So yeah, it's not great. But there's the point about just categorizing old as dreadful is slightly maddening, because I think there are lots worse times in your life than when you're old. I mean, can't you remember what it was like when you were a teenager? Being a teenager was horrible. Everything was awful about it, not least your parents. So I think every stage of life, when you're a young mum and you've got screeching toddlers in the supermarket lying on the floor and having a tantrum when you're trying to get through the checkout, that's all awful. But this is all romanticized. It's all beautiful, but being old is fine.
I noticed that the dedication to your many grandchildren ends with in the hope that you will realise that getting old is not so gross as you think it is. Yeah. Do you think that young people, and your grandchildren are probably too young for this, but young people have this idea it's gross because no one wants to address their own mortality because we know it's coming for us?
I don't know, but I do think that young people and not so young people think of old age as gross. And certainly teenagers think, I mean, one of the most interesting things, there's a chapter in this book. I know you've been forced into buying one, so I don't want to spoil it all for you. But there's a chapter called Love and Sex. And I'm trying to discuss the fact, and it is a fact, that watching old people kissing on screen is embarrassing. Now, I don't want to think this, because I think, why shouldn't old people have a good snog like anybody else? They want to. Why should that be embarrassing? And it made me think, well, perhaps it's because, we're programmed to, sort of genetically programmed, to only like the best of the species, the most beautiful of the species. So we approve of, we enjoy watching young people snogging away, but when old people do it, we think, and that's just a fact. I mean, I'm embarrassed at old people snogging.
I don't think you ever really see it on screen. I'm trying to think.
Well, you hardly ever do, because screenwriters know perfectly well the audience doesn't like watching it. Anyway.
Moving on, regretfully, from the Love and Sex chapter. We often hear the phrase, when it comes to the other end of life, it takes a village to raise a child. But we don't really talk about that in terms of older people. And I wonder I'm always struck by, in the village in France where my parents used to live, you'd see the old people sitting out on the little maison de la retraite, and they were sitting out, enjoying the sunshine, talking to people, etc.
And they're all the old guys sitting together.
In the square, yes. Smoking and playing ball and etc. And I think, do you think, in your wide experience, do you think that we do it better or worse in this country than other people? And also or we do it better or worse than we did in days gone by for the people that lived long enough to enjoy old age?
I think communities are more cohesive if they're in sunny climes. I think the weather makes a huge difference. If people live in the village square because it's always sunny, and so the middle-aged guys are playing pool, the little kids are running around, then there is a real connection, and the nonnas can look after the children much more. I think because we live in such a grim climate, we tend to be inside more. That and television and screens have sort of made it more difficult. But I think we should make a real effort. I mean, it's easier obviously, if you can afford it. But one of the greatest pleasures of my latter life has been family holidays, because you can bribe, you need to bribe your children, is the long and short. I mean, we have very good methods of bribing our children to come and see us. But the best way to see a lot of them all together, all the grandchildren, and John, my husband, has a whole lot of grandchildren too, so between us we've got a good round dozen. And to get them all to be on holiday together, I've been lucky enough to say, okay, that's how I'm going to spend my money. So we all went to Val d'Isère for a skiing holiday together, and I think they would agree too that it was one of the best holidays they ever had, because it meant they were seeing their cousins and their brothers, and their, you were sort of forcing them to do what the village square in Italy or France would do anyway. So,
Did you ski?
No, I didn't ski, but I did something
The
called
Wonder
sit
Woman.
skiing. Have you heard of sit skiing? Oh, I tell you what, if you are beyond skiing, and I'm definitely beyond skiing, sit skiing is the answer, because I got so jealous, because I've actually tried twice in my life to learn to ski, and both times was a complete disaster. The first time I fell down on the first day and cracked my coccyx, so I had to lie on my tummy for 2 weeks while everybody else was skiing. But it wasn't all bad, because I got a taste for whiskey.
That's a pleasure for
lay
life.
on my stomach drinking whiskey. Anyway, but the next time I was sent by Harry Evans, who was the great editor, many of you will remember him, of the Sunday Times. And he had learned to ski after he was 40. And so he got obsessive about it. He was on a mission to get the whole world skiing when they were at any age, old people. So he looked around in all the journalists he employed for people who were over 40 who had never skied, and there weren't very many of them, so he had to go right down to the cookery writer to find one. And so he sent me and 6 others, and we all went to different resorts. I went to Wengen, and there were people went all over the Alps, different resorts, and we all went to different altitudes, and we all learnt in a different way. Some people had short skis and private lessons, and some people were in ski school, and some people were on the nursery. Well, I was unlucky enough to end up in Wengen on a year when there was no snow on the nursery slopes at all, so we were forced into higher stuff, and anyway, I couldn't do it. So it was a complete disaster, and I ended up so unhappy. I had this Austrian gazelle of a private tutor who kept saying to me, "You are not so alt. Go on." She was sort of trying to encourage me, and I remember whipping my passport out and saying, "I am old. I am. I'm too old to do this. Can't do it." And I ended up falling down a ravine, just like that. And I thought, I hate this. I'd lost my skis, so I picked them up, had to put them on again because I had to clomp, that awful thing of clomping sideways clomping up the mountain. And I saw, as I came over the brow of the hill, that there was a ski lift. And I thought, oh, thank God, that ski lift is going to go somewhere like a bar or a restaurant. So I went to get on the ski lift. And the trouble was that I hesitated so long about getting on that 2 or 3 chairs had gone past and were empty. So by the time I did manage to get on and get the thing, there was nobody in front of me. There were a couple of chairs empty, so I didn't know when to get off. So it went like this, up, and then it turned a corner and started going up. And I suddenly was 12 feet high, and I realized I should have got off. So I jumped off. And then I stood up, and I turned around I wanted to shout at the gazelle instructor for not telling me or something. And I turned around to shout at her, and her empty chair clonked me off. It took my beanie off. It didn't really hurt me, but it gave me a hell of a fright. And I thought, that's it. That's absolutely it. So I went into the restaurant at the top, drank half a jug of glühwein, and quit. So Harry Evans never had, he got 5 articles from other people who had loved their skiing and who were completely converted, and one from me, and you'll understand this as a journalist, how pissed off I was. He didn't publish it at all in the paper, and when he made a book out of it, I was in the back in smaller font than anybody else, because he didn't want to admit that there was nobody who didn't love skiing. So, anyway.
Just thinking how well that would do online now. He would have put that front and centre. But you still went back for more.
But this time, I've always wished I could do it. I've always wished I could do it. And so this time, when we had all the kids there in Val d'Isère, I was looking at the 3-year-olds whipping down the slopes and just having such fun. And I mean, to be jealous of a 3-year-old when you're 86 it's pretty ridiculous. Isn't it? Anyway, so my children bought me, as a sort of thank you for the holiday, 2 hours of sit skiing. And basically, sit skiing is you're sitting in a kind of cross between a pram and a wheelbarrow, and you're sort of strapped in, and it's all padded and lovely, and it's on skis. So this wheelbarrow is on skis, and you're in it. And you're powerless, because what's powering this thing is gravity and a chap, a really competent skier, who has got the handles of the wheelbarrow, and he's whipping down the slopes. And he's going at a fantastic lick. And so the wonderful thing about it was that it was so fast and so exciting, and you had all the excitement that I longed for, but none of the anxiety and none of the stress, because you can do nothing about it. You are not in control. Somebody else is in control, some great skier. Of course, it adds to the excitement, the fact that he only has to do that. And you're a goner. But he didn't do that. and our kids couldn't, John did this too, my husband, so the two of us were sit skiing, and our children were trying to keep up. And they couldn't really keep up, so we felt really triumphant. It was lovely. So sit skiing, next time it's wonderful.
This leads nicely onto one of the things that really struck me about the book, which was, as I said at the beginning, how many different hats you've worn, but you've got this real greed for new experiences and trying new things, and you don't seem to suffer for any lack of confidence about if you don't mind not being particularly good at things. And I'm just thinking of, and you say it yourself, your appearance on The Masked Singer, that you said you've always wanted to sing, but you could never do it. So instead of accepting, I cannot sing a note, and so I wouldn't
you should do it.
But you decided that you were going to learn to sing, and I don't know how old you were then, but it wasn't that long ago.
2 years.
Yes.
2 years ago. I was 84. Yeah, I mean, I have always wanted to sing. I mean, anybody who can't, most people who cannot sing and feel that they're tone deaf and get really tired of people saying, there's no such thing as somebody tone deaf. I could teach you to sing. Well, some people can't learn. They may be able to teach you, but you can't learn. And I had many attempts to learn to sing. I just wanted to be able to, I was jealous of that. Some of you are old enough to remember Songs of Praise, which used to happen on Sunday nights on telly. And you just see the faces of these people who are singing, well-known hymns, and their whole faces are sort of lit with the pleasure of singing. And I sort of knew that would be wonderful if I could ever achieve that. And I could make a noise in the sense that I could sing in the bath, or I could sing walking around the garden. But I'm sure not in tune, but at least a noise would come out of my throat. But if I ever stood in a church next to, let's say, my children in a school, carol service or something, no sound would come out at all. My throat would just close up, and it would hurt, but no sound would come. And so when the Masked Singer rang up and said, would you like to be on the Masked Singer? I'd never heard of the Masked Singer, but anyhow, for those of you who haven't heard of it, it's a television show which is hugely popular, where they dress up so-called celebrities. And it's not really a singing competition. It's a competition. You get thrown out, not for not being able to sing, but for being recognized, that the audience guesses that behind the mask, because it's called the Masked Singer, is whoever it is. And so they asked me to do this. I'd not heard of it. I mugged it up and thought, well, I couldn't possibly do that, because at least you have to be able to make a noise, and I can't sing. And I said, I can't sing. And they said, you know, everybody, many people have come on the Masked Singer over the many years they've had the program. And we have never failed yet. We've always been able to teach somebody to sing. We can teach you to sing. So I thought, oh, this is my chance. I'm going to learn to sing. They've guaranteed that they can learn to. Well, all I can tell you is that the budget that they had for teaching non-singers to sing wasn't going to remotely crack it. No chance. You know, it amounted to a few online lessons. I needed. Well, I ended up with hiring a really good voice coach who's an opera singer, and he came twice a week to my house for 6 months and taught me to sing. And I can't say he taught me to sing in tune, because he said on the very first day, he said, forget about whether you're in tune. It doesn't matter if you're in tune or not. This is a program which is not about disguising your voice, which we're not going to bother with. They can do that. All you're going to do is enjoy it. And he said, you've got to learn to breathe, which he taught me how to do, and you've got to learn to belt it out and sing to the back row and enjoy it. And don't worry about. And when I got it into my head that I didn't need to worry about being into, so I did, and I absolutely loved it. I absolutely loved it. And when I finally had on the day, because the last bit is filmed as live, and I was quite frightened, because, you know, I was dressed up as Pegasus with a great horse's head and hooves and wings, big wings. Had to go through doors sideways because the wings were so huge. And it's the most surreal experience, because you're not allowed to speak to anybody, because they'll recognize your voice, and the crew mustn't know. Nobody's allowed to know, because lots of betting goes on the Masked Singer, so it's really, secrecy is all important. Anyway, and so when I finally stood there on the great moment, I had a little earpiece where the director, who realized that I was so unmusical that I wouldn't know when the first verse of the introductory verse of "Oh, What a Beautiful Morning" comes to an end and I'm supposed to come in. I wouldn't be able to do that without help. So he was going to count me in, 3, 2, 1. But I couldn't hear anything from him, because this thing wasn't working. So I could hear the music playing. And I thought, I'm sure I'm supposed to come in here. Didn't say anything, because it wasn't counted in. So finally, after a bit, I realized, sort of nothing. So I just said, in my perfectly ordinary voice, I'm feeling like a complete nana here. I'm standing here and I can't hear anything, and blah, blah, blah. And then they came and fixed it. But of course, I'd been talking in my ordinary voice. So Jonathan Ross, who knows me anyway, knew immediately who I was. So I was first out. I was thrown out before anybody else. Not because I couldn't sing, which would have been justified, but because they knew who I was. But then you get a moment when you're allowed to. They ask you, when you take the head off, they pull your head off, and everybody realizes that you are who you are. And then they ask you to sing it again, and that's fine, because you've lost everything by then. You're dead, so you might as well enjoy it. So I loved it. I loved it. And you know what? I can now sing I can stand next to my grandchildren and sing Good King Wenceslas or whatever, which is wonderful, So.
On the same theme, so as I'm sure everyone in here knows, you recently announced your retirement from the Great British Bake Off. But that's actually the third time that you've retired from television. Because I think you had 11 years on the Great British Menu, and then I think in the 1970s you presented a daytime television show, and you still have an ITV show, Prue Leith's Cotswold Kitchen, is that right?
Yeah, and I've just done another television programme which will be coming up.
Yeah.
I'm not retiring from television. I was just quitting Bake Off, and the only reason I was quitting Bake Off because Bake Off. Nobody could not like working on Bake Off. I mean, the team is lovely, and who can complain about a job where all you have to do is walk on, eat cake, say what you think, walk off, get paid. Brilliant, and it's very little work because the bakers take a long time to make a showstopper. So while they're working, I was writing novels or other cookbooks, or it was the perfect job for me. And I did it for 9 years, and I loved it. And frankly, I could have gone on doing it happily. But there were two things that were bugging me. One was that it's filmed all through the summer because there's the Great American Baking Show, which is the same thing but with American contestants. There's Great British Bake Off, there's the Celebrity Bake Off, there's all these things. And they take the whole summer. So I realized that I would never get another holiday in Europe in the summer. And who wants to holiday in Europe in the winter? Except at Val d'Isère. Nobody. So I wanted to be able to spend some time on the Côte d'Azur or in Italy or in Spain or in Greece.
It's a very good reason to retire.
Very good. So I thought, I've got to quit. And so I did. But the very first time I retired from television, as you put it, was when I'm so old that I can tell you about the start of the BBC. When television first started, there was no television in the morning or until 4 o'clock. Television started at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And it was all black and white. And the BBC wanted to make colour television, and they wanted to experiment with it. And they had the morning and lunchtime when they could actually broadcast without anybody knowing it was out there. And so they could experiment and do things. And they decided they wanted to experiment with the cookery show. And I had a friend who was a presenter on BBC. And she suggested that I would come in and do something. So I came in to make one dish, sort of risotto or a sort of rice up, rice and stuff in a frying pan very quickly. And I arrived to do this. It was the first time I'd ever been on telly. And it was a mock-up of a kitchen, and to my horror, I realized that the cooker wasn't a real cooker. It was just 4 rings painted on a tabletop. So when I put the frying pan on and said, and when the butter is sizzling, add the rice, the butter didn't sizzle, and I added the rice, and the lump of butter sat there in a lump. And then I'd add various ingredients, and then stir, and I'd shake them, and this lump of butter rolled around, collecting ingredients in a ball of uncooked ingredients. Anyway, it was a complete disaster, and so that was my first experience of television. And then I got a job. Do any of you remember Jack DeManio? Well, Jack DeManio used to be the presenter of the Today programme. And he was a great presenter, except he was known as Jack DeManio Precisely. He was known as Mr. Precisely because he used to say, telling the world what the time was, it is precisely 8:45, but he'd normally get it wrong, and he'd say it is precisely 7:45, or it'd get the whole nation in a panic. And he did tipple a bit. So I think the BBC finally decided that it was time he left. So he went off to Tyne Tees Television to do what was then called an afternoon women's programme. And this programme was actually, shamefully, it would now be, it was called Women at Home. And it was for women at home. And women were at home then. And so it was a kind of magazine programme. And he would introduce various things, and one of the strands was cooking, and so he asked me if I would do the cooking strand. It was just 4 minutes, and I thought, well, I can do that because I can stand there making an omelette while he asks me what I'm doing. I'm sure I'm up to that, you know. So I agreed to do this. And a week before we were due to start filming, the director rang me up and he said, I'm sorry to tell you, but Jack has stepped down. But we thought you might like to present it. And it never occurred to me, and I think it's sort of indicative of my nature. It never occurred to me to say, you do know I've never done any television at all. Never, except for pretend cooking on the BBC. So anyway, I got the job. And I hated it because the director was a martinet. He was an ex-school teacher. You know, television was so early that everybody in it was new. Everybody was actually something else, and he was a school teacher. And he liked everything scripted. He couldn't bear any spontaneity. He couldn't. And so I had to learn all these terrible speeches I had to make all the time. And I just hated it. And so I thought, well, I'll never do television. And I didn't do television for 30 years. Then somebody asked me to do the Great British Menu, which is a judging job. And I actually thought, you know what, I'm qualified for this, because by then I had a chef school. I must have judged thousands of students' food. I had a Michelin star restaurant, so I knew about restaurant food, and I knew all the chefs that were, you know, I knew the people that I'd be judging. That milieu was my milieu. And I cooked a lot of food, and I'd eaten a lot of food, and I'd written about a lot of food, because by then I was a cookery writer like you. And so I thought, I can do this. And I did do it, and I did it for 11 years. So I'm quite a stayer. 11 years there and 9 years in Bake Off.
But you retired from the Great British Menu, I think, when you were 70.
Yeah, I did. I was 70.
You took something on else
It's
immediately. But what was it like? Because Great British Menu, the BBC Two, prime time, you're already well known because of all the other stuff you'd done.
Yeah.
But then Bake Off is another level, and you became very famous in the US, and I think you write in the book about
the Americans absolutely.
You.
I don't understand it, to be honest. I mean, I love the Bake Off. From my point of view, it could not have been a better job. But I don't really understand why the public are so obsessed with it. I mean, it's only cake, for God's sake. But the Americans are completely. I can't walk down the street in
that must be so strange at this time of life to suddenly become that famous. I mean, having been well known previously, but to become America famous.
Yeah, it's completely crazy. And it is just to do with Bake Off, because Bake Off has this extraordinary. I mean, nobody on the Bake Off team had any idea what they were getting themselves into. They thought they were doing a little program for women who were at home, who, you know, the sort of women who enter the village fete to win the, you know, Victoria sandwich competition. And they thought they'd have a tiny middle-class audience. And they turned out to have an audience that was granddads and tiny kids and everything. So, and they still think it's a miracle. It is a complete miracle. So, I mean, it was pure luck to get onto that, and pure thing. But, you know, and you're right. I mean, it means that it was a jump up in, you know, profile. But, you know, I'm such an egotist. I love the attention. I love being stopped in the street for a selfie. Paul Hollywood, on the other hand, really is very shy, and he doesn't like.
See, that's interesting, because that's not how he comes across on screen, but he doesn't like the attention.
No, he really doesn't. He won't come to a party. I can give a party, and everybody, all his friends will come. His wife will get absolutely furious because she'll want to come. But he doesn't want to go anywhere where he'll be asked for a selfie, although he always behaves beautifully if he's forced into it, you know, if he's trapped. But he prefers to see people he knows, and he doesn't do anything else except the Bake Off. whereas I do anything anybody asks me. He keeps saying to me, why don't you just retire? Why don't you just do nothing? Why don't you lie in the sun?
And what's your answer?
Well, I like the attention.
Last week, I think we're going to get onto audience questions in a minute, but one of the jobs that you say that you've been most proud of is your campaigning work for various causes. Obviously been very prominent recently in the assisted dying bill. There's a school food campaign. I think you've announced something new. Is that how you would like to be remembered? What do you think you'll be remembered for?
Well, I think I've been latterly most excited by a new thing that what was my chef school, Leith's School of Food and Wine, but I don't own it anymore. So I can't actually claim any credit for this, but I have to tell you about it because I think it's the most important thing that's happened with children's food education, is Leith's School of Food and Wine is now owned by a family who have decided that they will spend all the profits that the school makes in ensuring that primary school children learn to cook, state primary school children. So last week we announced a curriculum which is based on a screen chef, a lovely young guy called Chef AJ, who the children just adore and will do anything he says, and is a cook-along. He does one thing, and then the children do it, and then he does, and it can happen in a school hall with very basic equipment. It doesn't need the reason the children don't get taught to cook at school is because they think it's expensive. Schools think it's terribly expensive because they think immediately about big kitchens and stuff. They think. And they haven't got any teachers. There are very few trained food teachers. But at primary school, you honestly don't need them because the children follow what the chef does as a cook-along. He does something, they do it, he does it. And then they end up with their little pot of yogurt or their pita bread or whatever it is. And it's very simple stuff. But at age 4, that's all you need. And they're learning maths at the same time. They're cutting up. They cut up a grape, and he says, right, you've got 4 grapes, and you've cut them in half. How many grapes have you got? And if you cut them in half again, how many? So they're learning other stuff as they go, and they absolutely adore it, and it's free, because Leith's does it for free. Now, I would love to be able to say that was me, but unfortunately it wasn't. But never mind, I'm still.
But you have been very involved in.
Oh yeah, I just think what they do is brilliant.
Yeah. But in sort of the food education space in terms of school food, etc.
Yes, I'm very involved with another charity which is called Chefs in Schools, which is Henry Dimbleby's brilliant idea, which is that we need to steal chefs away from the restaurant world where they're very unhappy because the conditions are bad, the pay is lousy, they can't ever see their children, they have to work weekends and evenings, and get them to work in schools, and then terrific curriculum with really healthy food and teachers sitting down with them, persuading them to eat their veg and enjoy it. And I honestly, really with my heart and soul, I believe if we could teach this generation of primary school children to love healthy food, we would crack the NHS problem, we would crack the obesity problem. Because if children love good food and choose it, which they do. We've got fantastic evidence now. We've been doing this in the Leith's thing. We've been doing it for 5 years, and just written a report on it. And I think we've done it in 45 schools, just as an experiment. 45 schools, 5,000 children, and the results are extraordinary. Those kids are going home saying to their parents, "Can we go to the supermarket and buy this stuff because I want to cook this?" So, just can be done.
Incredible legacy. Okay, I'm going to read a question in the start of the questions, if that's okay.
Yeah, sure.
With you, or the other people's questions, though I still have a long list of questions. But if anyone has a question, if you'd like to stick your hand up, I'm going to start with a question that has been submitted already, but there should be microphones that are going around the room if anyone would like to ask Prue a question.
There's a lady waving one behind there.
Yes. So a question from someone that's pre-submitted it is, looking back, which failure taught you the most, and how can we show young people see mistakes as fuel instead of fear? Have you had any failures?
Oh yeah, lots, lots. I think I once decided to start a vegetable import business. And the reason I did this was for no better reason than I really liked the guy who had a refrigerated van, and he was already bringing in veg, and he was rather chaotic about it. And he said, well, the trouble is I don't really know any restaurateurs. So I said, well, why don't we form a company? I know all the restaurateurs. I'll be your saleswoman, and we'll do it together. Well, it was a complete disaster. It was an absolute disaster, because what I hadn't reckoned on was that all the chefs who we were selling to, their previous suppliers had all been paying them backhanders to use them. And so they were all getting bribes. And so when we delivered all our veg, they would, the reason I managed to get the contracts was because I knew their owners. And I was ringing up the owners of the restaurant saying, I am the first honest veg man you've ever met. And I'm going to sell you, the oranges at the bottom of the box are going to be as fresh as the ones on the top. And I'm not going to peel the cabbages. And I'm not going to do all those tricks that veg people do. And so they said, yes, okay. And they forced me upon their chefs. And their chefs were furious because I wasn't giving them bribes. So it didn't work. So that went down the tube. And if it taught me anything, but I'm not sure it taught it very well because I've always rushed in, is that you should actually do a bit of research before you do anything. I mean, my other disaster, which was the first thing I ever had a bright idea about, was that my mother was an actress, and I had been to drama school because at one point I thought I'd be an actress. And I loved the theatre. And I realized that actors in their dressing rooms on a matinee day have a pretty grim time because they've got their makeup on and they don't want to get completely dressed and go out to things. And a lot of them would like to eat something to eat. And so I thought I designed this little idea of really beautiful picnic trays. It was called matinee collations. And I would turn up at the theatre with this lovely little picnic tray. But I hadn't done my research. I didn't realize, for example, that I thought all matinees were on Wednesdays and Saturdays, but they're often not. They're on Tuesdays and Thursdays and all over the place. And I didn't realize that the theatres failed. I'd get all the orders and I'd get there and the theatre would be dark because the whole play had closed. And I didn't realize that I'd have to bribe the doorman to get in. So that was another
going on.
So this is all about do a bit of research first. Okay. But I've done a lot of things without that have worked. So I don't think it's a very good model. But the fact is, I opened a restaurant when I'd never ever worked in a restaurant, and that worked. I opened a chef school when I'd never taught anybody anything. That worked. So I would say to young people, for God's sake, do your research first, and also go and work in the industry in case you don't like it. I mean, the hours are awful, and it's hard work. I mean, there are great things about it, but it's not all bliss. So it's quite a good idea to get some experience first.
Question from the audience. Is that gentleman there? Sorry for pointing.
Hi. Hello, I'm Chris. Nice to meet you. There's a lot of research now on longevity, and one of my favourites is groups of centenarians around the world who've been studied to look at things that they all do that we could all learn from. Having a plant-based diet is one, for example. One of the other things is having a life purpose, a reason to get out of bed in the morning, ikigai in Japanese. I wonder, what's your life purpose?
Well, this sort of is very similar to that. I think I would say that, I'm guessing, because I honestly don't know. I think it's, in my case, it's probably genes. My mother was a very successful theatrical producer and actress, and very energetic, and had her own company and raised us and did lots of different. So I think a lot of it's genes. But mainly I think I'm lucky because I sleep really well. I really sleep well. I eat very well, which is not surprising because I'm a cook and I love good food. And I don't think I've, it sounds really pompous this, but I don't think I've ever bought a ready meal, ever. I've probably eaten one often, but I like cooking, and I'd rather have something, I'd rather have a piece of cheese and a banana than some ultra-processed rubbish. So I think what you eat is probably really important. But I think that your last thing that you said about a purpose is just so fundamental. You must love your life. You must want to wake up in the morning. You must have a reason to want to do stuff. And that is not something you can just say, I'm going to have a purpose. You don't, if you don't have the energy and you don't feel like it and you don't want to do something, and you're ill, or I don't want to criticize people who don't, but I've been very lucky. I always want to do something. And I think it's quite tiring. My children once said to me, "Oh, Mum, you're so tiring." And I think that's probably true.
Meant fondly,
I do think. The only thing that, there's that wonderful guy, if you study longevity, Christopher Ball in Oxford. Well, he has the longevity project, and his great thing is, I forget, meds he calls it, and I forget what they all are, but they're basically those things, but one of his very hot things is exercise. He really thinks exercise is absolutely crucial. Well, I have to say, I think exercise is the most boring thing in the world. And my advice is don't do it. And he's a great friend. But I do talk about him in that. The only exercise, I do a tiny bit of exercise, because a physio told me once that I had to do 40 minutes of, sort of stretches and knee bends and leg lifts and, over this way, over that, all that thing. But I realized that if I really went at it fast enough, I could do this whole thing in 10 minutes, which I think probably completely annuls any usefulness, because I am a little out of breath at the end of 10 minutes, so that's good for me, a bit of cardio, whatever. But I don't even know why I do it, but I do still do that.
Seems to be working. Any other questions? Lady at the front.
Do you know, the first time I ever spoke in this room was when I was chair of the RSA, and this, I don't know if you remember it, but it used to be all, like a lecture hall with raised seating. It was terrifying. Absolutely terrifying, and it's so nice to be in this room and not feel terrified.
You don't know what the next question is, yeah?
Oh, right. Okay.
Well, that's very much on that topic. I'm Eva, I'm the deputy chair of RSA now, and I just wanted to ask you a question. A lot of our fellows are in their 60s, 70s. What do you think a cultural institution like RSA today could do to help with the process of aging to the fellows?
Well, I don't know about aging. I don't know. I've always been such a fan of the RSA, because I think it's the only institution whose sort of mission in life is to plug the holes in society that need plugging, to fix the things that are wrong. Right from their inception, they've always done that, whatever it is. But on aging, I don't know. I don't want to stop. I'm not. I'm not particularly interested in the idea of people living forever. I want them to live well. I don't want length of life doesn't seem to be important. But I think more important for old people is community. And that's the thing that the RSA is good at, is there are lots of ways to plug the holes in the way we live. I do think that if we don't make it easier for families and for communities to have a say in what's going on and all the various things that the RSA would get involved in, we're doomed, really. If we go on being more and more isolated and more on our screens, I mean, I think one of the most important things has got to be we've got to crack this business of children doing increasingly badly at school and becoming increasingly isolated and unhappy because they're on their screens all the time. If we don't crack that, it's a downward spiral, isn't it?
So another question at the back. Yes.
Hello.
Hello. Thank you for a lovely evening so far, Prue. It's been most interesting listening to you. You have a whole dictionary of foodstuffs and preparations that you've done all over your life. What's your go-to favourite meal when you close the door on the outside world?
Cake? Well, I think the sort of indulgent thing would be probably cake. Probably a River Cafe lemon polenta cake. You know, squashy, rich, not too sweet, no icing on top, but a bit of icing sugar maybe. And I like the way we're beginning to eat far more. I mean, if I was getting people sometimes say to me, what would your last meal be? If you were on death row or something. Well, I think it would depend what I'd had at lunchtime. So my favorite meal changes all the time. But at the moment, I'm very keen on sort of Turkish spicing. I like slow cooked lamb that is, it's got lots of coriander and cinnamon and garlic and slow, shreddy, slow cooked stuff. And I like that Middle Eastern, the things they'll do with feta and with whipped goat's cheese and with all those sort of creamy things that don't feel as wicked as double cream or ice cream, but are just lovely. I'm so greedy, I probably like anything. Bangers and mash will do.
Finally, before we wrap up, we've got a question that someone wants to know what book next. Are you still going to be writing books? Are you writing more novels, more cookbooks?
I don't know. I wrote this one in about 3 months because I just wanted to say what I feel about.
Wow.
It's very, very fast. But you'll see when you're going to take it home, aren't you? So you'll see it's not a very big book. And I really enjoyed writing it. But it's more like journalism because I was just attacking bits of aging, like health and exercise and dying and grandmotherhood and widowhood and all these things. It was just like writing a specky piece on each of them. So it was easy to do. I love that kind of writing. I'd like to write another novel. I know I won't write another. The novels that I most enjoyed writing was I wrote a trilogy of novels, which was about 3 generations of the same family, and they were love stories. Each one was centered on one love story, and I'd love to do that, but I honestly don't think I'll live long enough to write 3. So I think, I don't think a long project, but I think a novel, probably.
You heard it here first. Thank you so much. That was such a fascinating conversation. Thank you all for being here. Your books are available from the Waterstone stand outside. They've all already been signed by Prue, who does not sit on her laurels. But if you would like a dedication, then Prue will also be available to do a few dedications, I think, next to the Waterstone stand. But thank you so much, Prue. That was great.
That was fun.